Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you another episode of Jesse Judge's Book Covers International Edition. I did this a few months back and I really enjoyed it. I love critiquing book covers even though I have zero nada credentials when it comes to like graphic design, book cover design, all that stuff that goes into making a book cover. I proudly judge books by their covers. I'm not saying it persuades me to read books, even though that's exactly what I'm saying, but it also does not dissuade me from reading books. I've read some books with some pretty trashy covers in my day. I'm gonna be going over 4 covers today, which I know sounds like a small amount, but they're popular books, so they've got a lot of additions. I would go over more, but I don't want to take up 5 hours of your time, which is why I turned this into a series. If you have any books that you want me to critique the covers of, drop them down below in the comments. Before we get to it though, today's video has a sponsor. Today's video is being sponsored by Book of the Month. If you don't know anything about Book of the Month, let me fill you in. Book of the Month is a monthly book subscription service. Each month they curate a list of books by vetting hundreds of books, ensuring that they pick high quality books to have on your radar. They always have a variety of books to provide every type of reader with a new favorite. It's a great way to keep new and fresh books, genres, and authors coming into your collection. They have a skip whenever policy, so if you aren't feeling that month's selections, you can easily roll your credits over to the next month. I had the hardest time selecting books this month because there were so many good selections, but I did eventually narrow it down. Let me share the books with you. First book I got is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I see Leigh Bardugo's name on it, I grab it. This is the sequel to Ninth House, which I read last year, and I found it to be very interesting. Definitely far outside of what we normally see with Leigh Bardugo. It's nothing like her Grisha work, not that I was expecting it to be anything like her Grisha work, but I was just shocked by how vastly different it was. I'm definitely interested in delving into this one and seeing where the story goes. Then in the iconic Book of the Month blue box, we've got Lunar Love by Lauren Kung Jessen. This story is about 2 matchmaking rivals who fall in love. Count me in! Bring on the tension, bring on the rivalry, bring on the romance. I unexpectedly fell into the world of romance last year and I loved the romance books that I read. I never thought I'd see the day, but the day arrived. And I welcomed it with a warm hug, so I'm super excited to get to this one. The other options that they have this month, we've got The Age of Vice. This is literary fiction. What Lies in the Woods. This is a thriller. Queen of Thieves, a historical fiction book. The Reunion, a romance. And Independence, a historical fiction book. You can get your first book with Book of the Month for only $9.99 by using my code Jesse. I will leave a link down below in the description to where you can find Book of the Month and more information on it. I love the Book of the Month service and I definitely recommend checking it out. Now it's time to get judging. Let me put my Simon Cowell snark on and let's get to it. Oh, before we get to it though, I just have to say, I'm just going off of what Goodreads categorized these editions, so if any of them are incorrect, let's dogpile on Goodreads and not me. If there are any mishaps on where specific editions are from, we go on Goodreads. We don't pile on me. Cool, amazing. Not saying that happened in the last comments of the video, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Let's get started. The first cover that we are going to be going over and judging is The Hunger Games. This is obviously the US edition. I love this edition. I think it's so nice. I think it's iconic. I think it's nostalgic. So let's look over other editions around the world. First up here, we've got the German cover. I'm going to go ahead and say this is Katniss on the front. Who else would it be, Jesse? Who else would it be? I'm a little unnerved. It feels like she's staring into my soul, trying to hypnotize me to pick up the book and read it. Joke's on you, cat girl. I read it like 10 years ago. I'm old. It says Die Tribute von Panem on it. I'm assuming Panem. It's just Panem from the book. Translate. Google Translate is my friend. The tributes of Panem. Oh, interesting. It's kind of got a little bit of a different title. I like it. I love learning. Learning is fun. Next, we've got the Dutch edition of The Hunger Games. This one is similar to the German one, but make it fall. The German one was kind of like spring, summer. This one is like fall time. But the one thing that remains the same is Katniss staring into our souls. This girl needs to get a hobby and stop staring into the depths of my soul. You've got a game to participate in, honey. Mom, I'm scared. I will say Katniss looking a little too clean in my opinion. I just imagine a very grungy looking, dirty looking girl being Katniss. I guess this could be her transformation after the capital. I didn't think about that. We'll say that. We'll excuse the cleanliness. Next, we've got the Arabic edition. This looks like a photo someone took at a nightclub and slapped it on a book cover. To say I'm underwhelmed is an understatement. I feel like this is not a very fitting photo for this cover. Next, we've got the Italian edition. This is the unshowered, dirty, grungy Katniss that I was looking for. Give us grunge, give us dirt, give us no showers. Except it appears she's become possessed. Her eyes are a little terrifying to me. Girl got lava in her eyes. Is that lava girl in there? I just noticed how freaking long her lashes are too. They're reaching above her brows. It's like her eyelashes are tentacles or something. Anyway, I'm hyper fixating on this cover. Let's move on. Oh, this is the Russian edition? This one looks like they've both stepped out of the shower and somehow look glorious. I bet this cover made Gale Stans furious. Is this triggering the Gale girlies? This is also giving throwback romance novel. I feel like romance novels these days don't look like this, but they used to look like this. It's a little too steamy for a YA book in my opinion. It's just not sitting right with me. Next, we have another Italian edition. This one is kind of slay. Even though it's probably a picture of a fence in the background, I'm just now realizing it's just kind of colored blue, but you know what? It's still a slay. Fence slay. I love the District 12 emblem, and it looks like something that you would see within the world of the Hunger Games. I'm into it. Even if it's a fence. I'm sure there were lots of fences in the Hunger Games. It's not that impractical. It fits the vibe. We're not gonna argue about a fence today. Not that any of you are trying to argue with me. I'm just imagining Fencegate happening in the comments. This is an English edition of the Hunger Games. We've talked about this mess before, but I scrolled on it again on Goodreads and I had to bring it up and have you all bear the pain of it with me again, because what is this? Whoever signed off on this needs to take a hike. Immediately. Drop what you're doing, take a hike. My eyes are burning. And I quote, "If we burn, you burn with us." Next, we've got the Romanian edition. You're joking with this cover. This is everything. This is the best one we've seen for the Hunger Games yet. I'm obsessed with this. The vibrant red, the design on it. I'm imagining this one with gold foiling on it and I want to faint because I'm dramatic. Romania did what they needed to do with this cover. Oh my god, so good! All the awards go to Romania. The last Hunger Games edition we are looking at is the Japanese edition. This one made me realize that I need an anime adaptation for the Hunger Games. It's something I've never thought of before, but this cover has me needing it. It's a need. It's not a want. It's a need. I must have it. I know we'll probably never get it, but I want, I need, I must have. I think my favorite edition of the Hunger Games was the Romanian edition. I also really loved the Japanese edition, but again, I love anime and manga, so that's probably why I like that one so much. But I think that all in all, I just prefer the US edition. Like, I just love the original editions. Very classic, very stunning, perfection. Jump scare! Next up, we are going to be looking at covers for The Hate U Give. I love the US edition for The Hate U Give. It's super simple, but it's also striking and very impactful, and there's just something about it that's like really iconic. I do wish that these blurbs were not on the front cover, but like I can overlook that. First up, we've got the UK edition. I like this one, but it doesn't like really stand out to me. Like comparing it to the US edition, this one is just like very underwhelming, I guess. Like, it's still a nice photograph. It's still a nice cover. I've seen a lot worse covers, trust me on that one. But it doesn't really stand out to me. Like, if I were to see this in a bookstore, I wouldn't be that intrigued by it. Whereas the US edition, not to keep bringing it back to the US edition, but I'm intrigued by it. I look at that and I'm like, I want to read that. I want to know more. Next up, we've got the Finnish edition. Another cover model staring into my soul. The theme of today's videos is cover models staring into our souls. I'm not a hater per se, but similar to the UK edition one, it doesn't really tell me much. The US edition one, I feel like it's kind of a conversation starter. It gets you thinking. It's like, why is she holding a sign? What's going on here? It's got that intrigue, that thing that just like pulls you in. I really gotta stop comparing it to the US edition. I guess I just have a special place in my heart for that edition. The next one says it's an English edition. I've never seen this edition, but I really like it. It does kind of remind me of the UK edition, mostly just like the position of the head. I'm a sucker for books that utilize graphic design in an interesting and unique way, and I feel like we see that here. It's just my type. Next, we've got the Indonesian edition. I am obsessed with this cover. Roll out the red carpet for her. She is the star. The art style almost reminds me of Alice Oseman's art style, which I love. And this cover actually gives you a peek of what the book is about without telling you too much, but it gives you enough to get you intrigued. If The Hate U Give ever has a graphic novel adaptation, I would want it to be in this style. Next, we've got the Swedish edition. Hear me out. I love the format of this cover. I like the photo and the font and the background structure, but the colors are not it. Sure, it is striking. It does catch my eye, that's for sure. But I think in general, I just personally don't vibe with neon colors. It brings me back to this atrocity, this neon madness, this neon sadness, this neon atrociousness. A few color changes in this cover would slap. This one is really interesting. I feel like it's the one that's like the most different from all the covers. I'm going back and forth on if I like it or not. It like does a good job of having that kind of like simple factor, but there's nothing like super striking about it. And I think that that's what, not to bring it back to the US edition, but I think that's what the US edition does well, is that it's a very simple cover, but it's striking. And this one is like lacking that like striking factor, but it manages to do the simple factor well. I'm in the middle here. What do you guys think? And lastly, we've got the Thai edition. This one is interesting. I also don't know how to feel about this one. I love the color scheme and I think that that works really well for it, but I think I would have liked to see more detail on the vector art. And I know that they're differentiating the characters with the different colors, but I feel like it's just still kind of mushy, like they're all mushed together, which maybe that's what they were going for, a big mush pile of friends. And if that's the case, you win. I think my favorite The Hate U Give editions were this English one. This one was unexpected. I haven't seen this one anywhere. And this Indonesian cover, it makes me want the Hate U Give graphic novel immediately. Give it to us. Give it to us. Next up, we are going over covers for Shadow and Bone. This is the US edition. I love it a lot. I love the color scheme. And it just screams Grisha, which makes sense because it's a book in the Grisha trilogy. First up, we've got the Polish edition. This one is giving Photoshop fantasy greatness and I'm here for it. It's very dreamy, it's very fantastical, and I am into it, baby. Would I want it over the US edition? Absolutely not. Nope. No way. Sorry. Next, we've got the German edition. This one is interesting. It's almost got like a watercolor vibe to it, which I really like watercolor and I think it works really well. I just think it's a little on the bland side. Little bit bland. I wish it was a little bit less on the plain side, a little bit less on the white bread side. I wish there was more detail, more things happening on the cover. It is like gentle and nice, not the worst. Next up, we've got the Czech edition. This one is something. I don't know if I hate it or if I love it. It kind of works for me. It's one of the better covers involving a cover model. That's what I will say. We've had some pretty interesting cover model situations, and this one is pretty decent. You know, I'm not mad at this. Most times I want to send those covers immediately to timeout, but this one isn't so bad. Next up, we've got the Romanian cover. I'm not gonna lie, my expectations were kind of high because of the Hunger Games Romanian edition, and my expectations were not met. I mean, it still has that like redness to it. That's really nice. Even though I think that the redness is a little bit too intense here, I think it needs to have some other elements kind of mellowing it out because it's just like red, too intense. Next we have the French edition of Shadow and Bone, and oh my god, this one is striking and stunning and beautiful and amazing and everything. This might be my favorite, at least so far. I'm imagining this one with the gold foiling treatment and oof! I'm deceased, dead, gone. Next, we've got the Swedish version. This one is sending me back to the Italian cover for the Hunger Games. It's like a zoomed out version of it. Joke's on y'all, Katniss and Alina are one and the same. Anyway, I'm beginning to think there's a reason as to why all these cover models are staring into our souls on these book covers. I think all these cover designers had a meeting and they were like, we gotta steal the souls of all the readers, so we're gonna put this girl on these covers that stares into the souls of the readers and steals their souls. I love a good conspiracy theory. No matter how off the rails they are. We have another Italian edition. Why is this one giving shadow hunters? Doesn't it look like Alina has runes like up and down her arms on this cover? This one is giving me like a gothic art style. I don't hate it. It's not my favorite, but most importantly, it doesn't really give me Shadow and Bone vibes. Like when I look at this, I'm not like, oh, Shadow and Bone. I'm like, Shadow Hunters. Next, we've got the Danish edition of Shadow and Bone. This one is kind of boring. I do like the bones surrounding the Grisha title. That's like a nice little touch. I'm into that. But the rest of it is so bland. There's just so much space that could have been utilized, and it wasn't utilized. Next up, we've got the Dutch edition of Shadow and Bone. This one is beautiful. I am shook. This one feels like an old school cover to a fairy tale. I don't think that Shadow and Bone is necessarily like in the lane of fairy tale. It does have like fairy tale elements to it with the aesthetics and with the writing style. But this just works so well for me. I love this cover. Like if I saw this book in a store, it'd be in my cart immediately. I want this just as an art piece in my house, honestly. Again, smack some gold foiling on this and it's over for me, baby. Ooh, I'm dead, deceased, gone. I keep dying in this video. It's really sad. Next, we've got the Thai edition. This feels like rock and roll merch. I do like the different design elements, but I just need it in a different color. And lastly, here we've got the Japanese edition of Shadow and Bone. I'm obsessed with this. I sound like such a weeaboo. I'm not a weeaboo, I promise. I'm not, but I love this, and it again makes me want an anime or a manga of Shadow and Bone. I do be an anime boy, and that's why this is hitting different, but I love it. Okay, for Shadow and Bone, I think my favorite editions were the French edition, the Dutch edition, and the Japanese edition. All of those, bangers. They slap. They're my favorite. They're so good. What were your favorites? And lastly, we are going over editions for They Both Die at the End. This is the US edition. I love it so much. I love the fact that there's like a little hidden element here with the Grim Reaper as the shadow. I love the cityscape, the silhouette style. It works for me. I love it. First up, we've got the UK edition here. I have like one really strong issue with this cover, and that's the fact that I'm not the hugest fan, I'm not the biggest fan of orange. I'm an orange hater. Like I love the fruit orange, but the color, no, pass, hard pass. My history teacher in 7th grade wore orange from top to bottom and had orange sprinkled throughout her room, and I don't know if that's why I'm not the biggest fan of orange anymore, is because I was like overstimulated with it in 7th grade. But man, orange is just not it for me. me. I guess there are exceptions, like I like a muted orange. If it's too intense, no. But if it's muted, I can deal with it. Like a pumpkin orange, like a fall time orange. I do really like the involvement of the hourglass. I think that's like really smart. It's a reminder of the story itself and how timing is fleeting within it. Typically, I like UK covers way more than US editions. Next up, we've got the Dutch edition. This one is really interesting. I like that it plays around with the fonts on this one, even though I feel like that does kind of make it a little bit hard to read and how it's like overlapping and whatnot. I love the idea of overlaid images, so the images that we see on this cover that are overlaid really work well for me. But I think outside of that, it's just a little bit too busy. Like there's too much happening, and I also don't like the muted colors. It's just kind of lacking in my opinion. We've got the Serbian edition. Again, I like the fact that they utilize the hourglass. I think that that works really well, and it's like a clever way to emphasize what's going on within the book. And the red is giving me blood red, which is death, blood, blood, death, death, blood, red, blood, death, blood. I doubt that that's what they were going for when they chose that red, but that's the vibe it's giving me. A bloodbath! Not that there's a bloodbath within this book, but there is death, so Next we've got the Norwegian edition. This one is so different compared to the others, and I like it a lot. I don't necessarily feel like it encompasses the message of they both die at the end, but it's so wholesome, and it does like make you feel something, especially after having read the book. You see this and you're just like, ah, my heart. But I love this one. I actually really appreciate this one. It's very unexpected, but it works really well in my opinion. The last one we have, because there were not that many editions of They Both Die at the End that didn't use the US cover, but we've got this UK recolored one with yellow. And honestly, this one makes me want to go back to the orange one. Like, I'd go back to the orange one any day after seeing this, because it's too intense. I love yellow. Mellow yellow. This is intense lemonade neon yellow. And I think it needs to go down the drain. Let's flush it. Bring back the orange. Okay, I'm down for the orange. Those are all the covers I'm judging today. Let me know down below in the comments some of your favorites and some of your least favorites. And again, this is a new series on my channel, so if you want to see me judge more books, drop some books that you would like to see me judged down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, yo!